Hi there, welcome to Taiwan Talk. I'm your host, Alex Lewis. This week we listened in on a conversation I had with T.C. Lin. He's known for many things, but we focused our conversation on street photography. Please enjoy. T.C. Lin, thanks for coming to the studios. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're here to talk about photography. Could you tell me how you got into it?
Well, I got into photography because basically both my mom and dad worked when I was growing up. And so I was home alone a lot and I was just looking for stuff to do. And I found the family camera and I started taking pictures. And my mom and dad got pretty sick of wasting film on shots of furniture, like the cat. And so they said, here's a camera you own. And I just started doing that. Just started taking pictures of, for high school stuff and through college, just got into it.
Yeah, so it was a hobby that kind of developed into, right now, you're a professor of photography. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Professor might be a bit of a grandiose term for what I do. I teach a course on photography at the Zhongzheng Community College in Taipei. And I've been doing that for a few years now, and it's enlightening to me to introduce this street photography, which is what I do and what I teach, to Taiwanese students and Taiwanese photographers who it's very structured otherwise here. The photography courses that you see generally are, very basic technical stuff. Here's how to take a picture of a sunset or a kitten in a sunset or something like that. And it's different. And what I teach basically is how to observe the world around you that's happening in real time. Not what you stage or what you imagine it to be, but what it is.
So that's why you like street photography, is because it's candid.
Right. It's real. It's not what I came up with for a studio shot or some model. I'm just sort of like, we're out there, you keep a camera on you 24/7, and whatever you see, if it's worth photographing, take a shot. But with respect. And that's one of the things about street photography that I try to instill in my students is you have to treat your subject with respect. You're not going out there saying, oh, look at that homeless person, look at that fat person, or look at the nose on that guy, or whatever. It's like, photographing someone is an act of respect. It should be.
Where do you like to go in Taipei to get really good candid shots?
Well, you can get candid shots anywhere. I personally am partial to the older parts of town because they have this history to it. The older parts of Taipei are really fascinating. And lately I've been in the Dadaocheng area, around Dihua Street.
Yeah. And
that is a fascinating area. I've been curating an exhibition there that's ongoing there right now. But basically what it is looking at Dihuajie and Dadaocheng from the view of foreign photographers, expatriates, and local photographers. And it's really interesting to see how different people see it differently, because that's the genius of photography, this is how I see the world.
About perspective.
Right.
Okay. Were you always interested in street photography, or did you dabble in other types of photography?
Well, street photography has sort of come about this term has come about as a result of this sort of internet phenomenon. It didn't used to be called that. It was just candid photography. People like Gary Winogrand, people like Henri Cartier-Bresson did it. But it wasn't called street photography. It was just photography back then. But street photography has sort of become this sort of catch-all phrase for, actually, it's become an excuse for a lot of really bad photography. Just like, well, it was street photography. I only had a second to get it, and all these excuses. But it's possible. It's hard, but it's possible to get really good street photography.
Yeah, I know the story of Vivian Maier.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a documentary about her. If anybody doesn't know about her, they can look up the documentary. But she was a street photographer. I guess you would call her a street photographer who wasn't known until her negatives of some of her photos were discovered.
Yeah, what happened was John Maloof, he went to this auction, he found all of her stuff, and he bought it because he was just looking for just regular stuff in Chicago area or whatever. And he found all these negatives. And actually, he didn't know what to do with it. He thought, I think it's good, I'm not sure. And so he went on to this Flickr group that I administer, actually, called Hardcore Street Photography. And he came to us and he said, I found all this stuff. Is it any good? What should I do with it? There's a thread in there. And we're like, wow, this is really good. You should do something with it. And of course, eventually, the vultures started coming out and saying, wow, you should make a lot of money from this. But it's interesting because John came to us and we told him to take it out there and show people because it's really good work. And then he just sort of went from there and he made the movie and all that stuff.
That is really cool. That's far out. Back to street photography, because that's a whole other topic. What type of camera is best for street photography? I would assume it's your phone because it's more discreet. You can just, you won't disturb the environment that you're in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're most comfortable with is fine. I've seen people use huge cameras for street photography, but it's really more about the attitude with which you take when you're engaging in it more than the actual camera itself. A camera phone is fine. My students, some of them use phone cameras, and that's fine. I don't have any sort of bias as far as that. I don't encourage people to use really long telephoto lenses because that's not really street photography in my opinion, because that's sort of like a paparazzi sort of thing. You're sneaking into the scene and it looks all far away and spy shotty, But anything with a normal lens, box with a hole in it, and that's all you need, really. One of the things that I should caution, a lot of people think, well, I have to buy this camera or that camera, and you almost never improve your photography by getting new gear. I mean, just about any camera these days is really good, even phone cameras, and you can hardly go wrong. So, that's a lot of people think, well, if I only had this camera or that lens or whatever, then I'd be really good, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, it's like buying gym equipment and expecting to get buff.
Yeah, yeah. Or like people buy, well, this song will sound really good if I get this high-end audio equipment that costs, tens of thousands of dollars, but no, I mean, your ears are the same ears, so.
Yeah, it's about the work that you put in.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Or honing your craft.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Have you seen the level of interest in photography grow over the years, or especially street photography in Taipei or Taiwan?
Taiwan is slowly catching up to this sort of global craze for street photography. And as I said before, street photography has a lot of terrible stuff going on. I mean, terrible photography, but you're going to have that. I mean, that's just the same with any photography. But I think in Taiwan, it's sort of gradually catching on a bit, and you see more people out there with cameras taking shots. I think it's encouraging. I think it encourages people to pay attention to the world around them, especially in this age where really very few people are taking an active interest in the actual world around them because they're, got their heads down in their phones.
Yeah. So it's kind of encouraging people to
look up once in a while, look around, look at your fellow humans, basically. Of course, everyone else has in their phones too, but see, I get a lot of shots of people looking at their phones, and that's like, oh, another one. But, not all hope is lost.
Yeah. What piece of advice would you give people just starting to get into photography as a hobby?
I think examine why you're interested in it. I know of people, I've heard of people that are into street photography because they think it's really cool, or they think it's a really hip thing to do, but they're not really interested in the photography. They're just interested in looking like a photographer, or whatever that means. But I think if you're interested in observing the world around you and expressing your vision through photography, a lot of people, they're very shy. They're not really good in social situations. But when you look at their photography, they're saying a lot that they can't get through verbally, perhaps, or in social situations. So I think it's another venue for expressing yourself. And I think if that's what you're interested in doing, then great. I think more power to you.
Do you have a favorite photographer, local or otherwise?
I have many favorite photographers. Actually, we, as part of this Daochen Arts Festival that we've been doing, one of my friends is a photojournalist here, and I've known him for many years. His name is Zhang Liangyi, and he's an excellent photographer. He just gave a talk at our symposium. He has so much to say about photographing in Taiwan. He's one of the better photographers here, I think. Also, I have some friends who are of the older generation of photographers here, people like Sun Zhaoliang, who do more, I guess, more art photography sort of things. As far as favorite photographers altogether, I don't know. I'm a fan of a lot of photographers. William Eggleston is one of my favorite photographers. Cartier-Bresson, Cortez. There's a whole laundry list.
What is your favorite photo that you've personally taken, and what's the story behind it?
The cliche answer to that is the photo I'm going to take next. Of course, that's probably not true, but I don't really have a photo. The way I look at my photos differs every time I look at them. So I might love this photo today, I might hate it tomorrow.
Kind of depends on where you are in your life or something. Or
Yeah,
how you
it
feel.
does. I mean, I tend to not look at my photos for a while after I take them because I want to forget the emotional circumstance under which I took it because that colors it. And I want to be objective when I judge a photo. So I usually take a bunch of photos, put them away for like 6 months or so, 3 months, 6 months, and then take them out and look at them. And then I'm like, oh, that's a decent shot. Because I can see it objectively.
Yeah.
But these days, everyone's like instant share. And of course, I'm guilty of that too. I've got Instagram,
Right.
and that's all my phone shots. I'm just like, put it right up the day of, and and then forget about it because that's Instagram.
Do you like Instagram?
Instagram is fun. As I said, I use it for phone shots because it's this tiny little screen, right? You can't really see like the real photograph. Some people might think that's kind of snobbish of me, but I like to see a print. I like to see a physical photograph. But for what it is, it's fun. I don't play the hashtag game so much. I don't play the likes and favorites game because I only have like people talking about, oh, I want to break 100K or 200K, and I'm like, I'm still working on a K, So, but it's fun for what it is. I like Flickr more for photography because you see the whole photo. It's a big screen. It's a nice image, and you also have the community. So you have the communication going on. You don't really get that in Instagram so much.
Do you have any other exhibits featuring your art or your photography going on, and any other events going on that you want to talk about?
Well, there's the Dadaocheng photography. I have 2 exhibitions there about the foreign Dadaocheng through a foreign lens is what it's called, and that's at URS 127, which is at number 127 Dihua Street, Section 1, and the other one is at number 27 Yenping North Road, Section 2, second floor. That's at the old Jiang Weisui Museum, and I'm actually part of a group called Burn My Eye, an international photography collective that I helped found in 2011. And we have an exhibit, because I just did a workshop recently with 2 other Burn My Eye comrades in Taipei. It was the first one in Asia that we've done. And so we have our work, my work up there at Le Zinc Bar, which is just behind the Chonghuan Temple on Dihua Street. But also, it's my work, the work of Andrew Kachanowski from the U.S. and Junko Nishimura from Japan. And also another friend of ours who is friends of BME, Remy Narula, who is from Thailand. So that's our work up at the Le Zinc Bar. But it's sort of associated with this Dadaocheng event.
And you're also speaking events as well, right?
Right. There's the Zhang Liangyi symposium that we did last Saturday, which is over, unfortunately, so I can't tell you to go to that. But next Saturday, we have Ethan Zhang. And Ethan Zhang, he's an interesting person. He is a street photography blogger of some note, and he has a lot of interesting things to say about street photography. And his Chinese name is Sun Ba. And so if you've ever heard of Sun Ba's street photography blog, he will be there in person at number 127 Dihua Street this Saturday at 2:30. He'll be giving a talk on that.
Okay, and if you have future talks, how do people find out about that?
Future talks. Well, this is all part of the Dadaocheng Arts Festival.
When does that festival end?
That goes through the month of October. So basically it's just October. But the photography from our workshop, all the students' work will be up at number 27 Yenping starting in November. That'll be up in November and December.
That's about it. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just happy to be able to talk about photography in Taiwan. It's something that a lot of people say they're into, but it's sort of like out of a sense of obligation. Like, oh yeah, I'm into photography, but are you really? It's sort of like, yeah, it's a thing to say I'm a photographer. But it's really nice to communicate with people who are really into it and are really passionate about it. And that's one thing that I'm really interested in doing with my course.
What do you know about the photography industry here in Taiwan? I've talked to a few people within the industry, and they say that it's a good place to start out. But if you want to expand your
influence,
yes, it's probably best to move to another city like Shanghai or Hong Kong or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've definitely been told that. And I'm not really a professional photographer. I don't rely on photography for my bread and butter. So I can't really speak to that. I know some professional photographers who have said similar things. If you want to do product photography or model photography or landscape or whatever that pays the bills, it might be good to expand beyond Taiwan. But for street photography, for what I do, Taiwan is perfect.
Have you done any street photography elsewhere, like not in Taipei, like elsewhere in Taiwan?
Oh yeah, I take my students on trips sometimes. I mean, we're usually in Taipei, but sometimes we go south. We've been to Tainan. We're going to Kaohsiung. We've gone to other cities around the island. It's interesting. Taiwan is it's different because photographing in Tainan, say, is different from photographing in Taipei. In Taipei, there's a greater chance of people thinking you're up to something, basically. They're kind of suspicious.
Their guard is up.
Yeah, their guard is up. And they're like, what, I might be doing something illegal or something. I don't know. Yeah. We haven't had a problem with it. It's been fine. But in Tainan, people are just so friendly and just so open. And the biggest danger that you'll have photographing in Tainan is people giving you the V sign, for every photograph. That's what they do. They're just happy, they're happy to be photographed. So it's interesting to see the differences around Taiwan.
Actually, I never really thought about that. I wouldn't because I don't take street photography, but
but you could.
I could, yeah. All you need is a phone to start
any camera.
Shots.
Any camera. It's all about how you see the world.
Yeah. What constitutes a good photograph in terms of the street photography thing? Because you talked about how there's a lot of crap out there.
I know. I probably shouldn't be so harsh about that, but a good street photograph is something that communicates to you, something that hits you down here in the soul. It's not something like, oh, that's a technically pleasing, pretty photograph. It's but something that hits you, when it makes you say, oh, when you see that, when it hits you, and something that lasts. It's not just the initial impression. It's something that leads your eye around the composition and makes you discover little things about it, and makes you think of a story. A photographer can't really tell a story by itself, but it can make you think of stories of your own, and it inspires that in you. Then I think that's a good photograph.
And what's your success rate? So if you take maybe 10 photographs, how many of those are good photographs, or
10
is good? Yeah, like 10
I would
or
say none. Maybe out of 1,000, I'll have a couple good ones. I think. I don't know.
Wow.
You have to take a lot of photographs. It depends. I mean, sometimes you're in the zone. You're just hitting them out. Sometimes you're just out there shooting all day and you don't get anything. You just can't. But that's again. It's kind of like gambling. It's like you're out there in search of this wonderful shot, and you never know when it's going to happen. It could happen under any circumstance.
Yeah.
You just don't know. Turn around the corner, you never really expect it, but you have to be open to it. So that's part of the excitement of it. Really, it's just like this might happen. This wonderful thing might happen. It probably won't, but you got to be open to it.
Huh? 1,000.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do.
Do you have a quick tip on how somebody could take a good photograph, like how to frame it or anything like that? Or what to look out for, I should say.
What I tell my students is they usually start out looking for interesting things and interesting people to photograph. But I tell them, you're not looking for interesting things or people so much as you're looking for an interesting photograph. I'd much rather see an interesting photograph of a boring thing than a boring photo of an interesting thing. So if you're walking down the street, you see, oh, this funny-looking person. Okay, so, I mean, but you have to look at the whole photograph and everything that's in it. It's not just the person. It's not just whatever you're trying to cram into your frame. It's the whole frame. It's the photograph that you're taking as a whole. I mean, you have to pay attention to everything from corner to corner. You're responsible for all of that. The background, the foreground, everything. The light, the shadow, the colors, everything.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, what do you think of the Instagram filters?
I think in moderation, they're fine. I mean, I think if the first thing you notice about a photograph is the filter or the processing, then it's a failure.
Right, yeah.
Because it shouldn't be about that. It should be about the photograph itself and what's in it.
The content.
Yeah.
Do you think it's kind of a crutch that people might lean on?
Yeah, there are lots of crutches people lean on. People buy big, fancy lenses that give you this really creamy bokeh, and there's lots of crutches. People convert things to black and white because they don't work in color. I mean, there's all sorts of crutches that people use, and if it works for you, fine. If you're happy with it, fine. But if you want to get better, then maybe don't use so many crutches.
How did you get better over the years? Take any classes on photography, or are you self-taught?
No, I never took any real courses in photography. I took a few, in school, the basic stuff. I went to film school in New York, but that was like cinema film. My suggestion would be to just practice a lot, take a lot of photos, and also look at good work. I think that's one of the main things, is to go to the library or go online and just look at work that inspires you. I mean, you can go to Esli Bookstore It's open 24/7. You can just sit down their aisle and just like leaf through all of these wonderful books and just think about this work. Why does it inspire you? Or why does this not inspire you? You know.
Thank you very much for coming in.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed listening in on my conversation with T.C. Lin. It was great having him on the show to share his views on street photography. That's it for this week's Taiwan Talk. I'm Alex Lewis.